Go ahead and start recording this presentation now. So we are now recording for training purposes and also for our archives. And again, my name is Bob Baker. This is our Friday deal building webinar with County Records Research, the focus of which is to help you evaluate properties and demonstrate some of the basic search techniques of the website so that we can discover ways that we can buy properties and explore the various methods that Kurt Demir has mastered, but also to show you that any property can have multiple methods of purchasing. We're not limited to buying at the auction when we're talking about buying foreclosures, and it's important that we all know that this is a flexible method of purchasing real estate, and that's why it's so beneficial to us, is we're not limited to any one course of action, and therefore we're not limited to any one particular property at any given time. So we're going to get started here. So what I want to let you know is you're looking at my screen right after I log in with my username and my password. This is our login screen. Once I've entered here, I always click on property search. Now you'll notice now that I'm in the property search screen, I've got my various counties available, and each county has a checkbox to the right. And then if I put my mouse cursor over any of the county titles, then I get a list of cities within that county, which is beneficial if I'm searching an unfamiliar county or I want to make sure that I've grabbed the right county for a particular city that I've got in mind. Now, to go ahead and get started, you know, the basic start of any search is to determine what we want to find. And so, of course, in my zone selection box, I can pick any of these counties and I can begin a search, or I can limit myself to one county, or I can specify I want to search all of California if I was looking for something in particular, such as commercial properties. Okay, Bunny says she cannot hear. Bunny, I do see that my audio is working. It looks to me like you've selected telephone. Oh, you know what? She can't hear. Shoot. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and type in a message here to Bunny. You need to choose your phone or your speakers. Okay. All right. Now I'm typing this in for Bunny because she's telling me that she cannot hear me. My microphone is working just fine. So if you can't hear, then you do need to check your audio. Okay. Right now. Okay. Okay, it looks like you're okay, Bunny. Can you hear me now? Okay, and I'm going to make a note. Okay, and I'm just making a note to Ron. You do need to select your audio function. Okay, so what we're doing right now is let's just get back to where we were. What I was saying was, I'll just go ahead and get started again. I've just logged in and selected property search. I'm now looking at my various California counties, and the first thing that we need to do to get started on research on properties is to establish what we're looking for. So the first thing I need to decide is, where am I looking for properties? And what I was saying earlier is, now I've got all the counties here in California, and I can select all purchase zones by clicking on this one little box, and that will let me search the whole state. If I was looking for something exclusive, like large parking structures or golf courses or if I was trying to buy a say a church for my religious organization. If I was looking for something highly specific, then I'm going to search a broader range because I'm looking for a very specific type of property. Whereas in most of our research, what we're essentially trying to identify are specific properties that meet our requirements in an area close by where we can get out there and take a look and make offers. Okay, the essential first step in buying foreclosure properties is making offers. We can buy them in a variety of ways. There are at least 5 ways to buy a foreclosure home. However, we need to isolate the properties we want, be aware of the different options we've got, and then start with square one, which is to go to that property, ascertain its value in our eyes, and then make an offer accordingly to buy the property. Once we've made an offer accordingly, then if that method doesn't pan out, we can follow up with supplemental efforts, finally concluding with the auction if we can't buy it before then, or perhaps buying it after the auction, because some people buy at auction with cash specifically to flip the property and they get a great deal. If someone else has done that, then I can come right behind that auction situation and make an offer to that buyer and tell him, congratulations, you got a great deal. I'd like to get a good deal too. May I make an offer to you? And you write up the offer. Okay, now that being said, we want to go ahead and start a search. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a target area. And for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to select Los Angeles County North. Now, Los Angeles County North is part of Los Angeles County, of course, but it also gives you a specific target area, which is the upper desert and the area around Newhall, Castaic, Canyon Country, and thereabouts. So you're going to have a lot of different rural properties, but you're also going to have a nice assortment of starter homes and higher end properties as well, horse property as well as multifamilies and condos. So a nice healthy mix in LA County North. So now once I've picked my target area, then I'm going to scroll down the page and I'm going to look for properties that are coming into the system. Now you'll notice there's a section I'm bypassing. This is our single property search. I'm going to show you this tool in just a moment. This is one of the most valuable tools on the website, single property search. It's how we do our secondary research once we've established an interest in a property. So first things first is I'm going to go down to my general property search section, and you'll find that this includes this area at the top where we can set specifications of the types of property we want. It also includes a map at the bottom in case I want to use a polygon search and draw a box around a target area that's an area where I specifically want to pick up leads or buy a property. Now, in this general section at the top, you'll notice that we have a choose one option, and then underneath the choose one, we have 7 different choices that we can make. Notice of default, upcoming sales, new REOs, canceled sales, bankruptcies, properties that have sold at auction to a third-party bidder like you or me, and then our final choice, which is our drop bid report. Now, the drop bid report is a function that we use if we're checking properties that are going to auction, and we're interested to find out where the lenders are setting their bids in the future. So if I wanted to see what types of auctions are happening in the next 2 weeks in this area because I'm interested in buying that way, I can simply go down here to the search button now that I've got drop bid report selected and hit search. Now, what it's going to show me is a small percentage of the properties that are set for auction in this target area in the immediate future. Notice above the map it says 0 to 20 of 17. Now, whenever you see 0 to 20, then you're going to see another number behind it that represents the total. Now, since it's 0 to 20 of 17, I know all 17 records are visible. If it says 0 to 20 of 50, then I would go here where it says show 20, 40, 60, and I would click the number 60, because then it would show me up to 60 properties, and then I would see all of them. Now, What we have at the moment is a list of properties where the lender has already set the opening bid. That's our drop bid report. So before the auction, the lenders will only set an opening bid price on about 1 in 20 properties. So only 1 in 20 will have a price prior to the auction most of the time, but that's all right. When we're planning to go bid at the auction, we can make an educated guess as to where the price will open. But more importantly, we're going to set a maximum price for ourselves. And again, getting back to the very basis of what we do in buying foreclosures, once we've picked this target area, and then we're going down to look for specific properties, we're always going to keep in mind that our goal is to set a price and obtain that price. It's that simple. So with any of these properties that has an opening bid, I know that if the price of the opening bid is less than what I'm willing to spend, then this is potentially the type of property I can buy at the auction. So here's an example of a house in Palmdale where it's worth $108,000. The lender is owed $85,000, and the lender has decided to cut their bid in half. They're going to open the bid for $47,500. Now, if I did my research and found out that this 3-bedroom home in Palmdale was worth my effort to buy it for about 50 grand, and I had the 50 grand in cashier's checks available to me, then I could be prepared to show up at this auction, which is now scheduled for July 9th. So I've got a couple weeks to prepare, get my monies together, and be ready to go. Now, let's just say that I'm interested in doing that, but I've never done this before. So let's explore the option of buying this house in Palmdale. Now, the property is at 40102 167th Street East in the city of Palmdale. So let's assume I've never seen the house, because chances are I have not. This is all brand new to me. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this button. This is the address I've just clicked on. Now, the system is going to open up my property profiles, just taking a few moments. And what we're going to see is we're going to see the loan information on this property. We're also going to see a map. And we're going to see the information on the foreclosure so we can be prepared to buy this property. And now we're going to take this a little further too, because I'm going to demonstrate to you that it was possible to make an offer before now, and I could have made an offer months ago on this very same property, simply because this foreclosure has been going on for at least 4 months that we know of, but probably longer. Now, first of all, I've got the property profile open, and I see my map on the right-hand side. Okay, and on the left-hand side, I see my information regarding the loans. Above the loan information, I have some other pieces of my puzzle. Remember, whenever we're researching a property, we're trying to evaluate what our best choices are and to go after those choices in the best way possible. So I'm looking at this, and Cynthia Crone is the trustor. Now, to be clear, we're trying to give you all the information you need. Cynthia is the trustor, which means Cynthia borrowed the money. Whenever you borrow money against a piece of real estate in California, there are 3 participants in the deal. There's a trustee, a trustor, and a beneficiary. Now, I'm going to scroll down here. Our beneficiary in this case is Nationstar Mortgage LLC. Now, I happen to know this is a servicing company, and it's very likely that this loan originally belonged to a major bank like Bank of America or perhaps Wells Fargo. Okay, now we see a trustee, which is NBS Default Services, and they appear to have an office in Long Beach. You'll notice the same address in both spots. Usually when we see a notice coming from a trustee on behalf of a lender, usually you're going to see that the trustee's address and phone number are provided. Notice it's the same address and phone number in both spots. That's very common. If we actually wanted to track down Nationstar's information, we might want to order a copy of the deed of trust or simply research Nationstar to find their information. I believe they're based out of Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so if I wanted to reach out to Nationstar, I have a loan number right here if I had a conversation to have with them. Now, I cannot offer to buy the property from Nationstar today because they will not own it until after July 9. July 9 is the currently scheduled auction date, and it's supposed to be held at this location on Sycamore Drive in the city of Norwalk here in LA County. Now, this location happens to be a hotel. We're familiar with it, and this is where auction.com holds their sales in Los Angeles County. They hold sales once a week, so this is scheduled for the 9th, and they've already set an opening bid of $47,500. As I said, we were going with the drop bid report, so we saw a property based on that opening bid price. Now, this opening bid price is where the lender intends to start the auction. That doesn't mean necessarily that that'll be my final price, because I could bid just a penny over this number, and I might be the winner, or there might be someone else standing right next to me who has a different price in mind and happens to have a little bit more money. The opening bid at auction is always from the bank. So Nationstar is the one bidding $47,500. I want to make sure you're clear on that because we get a lot of questions about that. The opening bid at auction is set by the lender on the foreclosing loan. So I'm going to scroll back up again to make sure we're all clear on the details. This is a set auction on this particular property on a foreclosing loan that appears to be a first, and that's where our red star is. We're showing it's a $77,000 note from December of 2009. Now, if I want to buy this property at auction, then I need to make sure that there's nothing older than this loan, because anything older than this loan would stay on the house after the auction. To give you an example, if this little star here was on the second loan, on the $13,000, well, my amount owed would be much smaller because it'd be a much smaller loan to start off with, and that's almost a brand new loan. But more importantly, if I bid on loan 2 at auction, loan 1 stays on the house. Again, to emphasize for people that are new with us, if you pay off loan 2 at the auction, loan 1 is still there, and I become the new owner subject to an existing first deed of trust. Now, this is an important principle to know because this is how people buy foreclosures. You can bid on the second at auction and take over payments on a first, or you can go to Cynthia before the auction and offer to buy the property from her directly, subject to an existing first. And so you can make an offer subject to an existing loan. And I could have gone to Cynthia months ago and made offers to her. Now, a couple of points to make. If you were to make an offer to Cynthia today, remember that if you make an offer subject to the loans, you're offering to take them over as they are and bring them current. And so that would make me the new owner. So let's just say, for instance, for argument's sake, that I want a decent deal and my credit's pretty bad and I don't have the cash to bid at auction, especially $50,000 or more. Well, I could go to Cynthia today and I could offer to take over her loans. She owes the first loan, which was originally $77,000, that's up to $85,000. Now let me emphasize that again. The $77,000 loan that's got the star next to it, this is a foreclosing loan. This lender is now owed $85,000 because that's the amount owed to lender. That is not a combination of these two. That is simply the first. So if I know she owes $85,000 on the first, the second is just from September of 2014. That loan's not even a year old. I would have to guess that she owes a good $14,000 on that. So if she owes $85,000 and $14,000, that's what, $99,000? Okay, so we're looking at approximately an $108,000 house according to our estimate of value, where she owes about $99,000. Now, if I was going to buy a house to live in, and I just wanted a fair price and my credit's terrible and I just simply want to take over payments, I would have to have about $10,000 in cash, and I could go to her and I could say, you know what? I'll pay what you owe. Just agree to take my offer. And I would make my offer. She owes about $100,000. It looks like it's worth about 108. Now, this is our comp. Let's see what Zillow has to say. Now, I don't take Zillow for granted. I simply use it as a purposes of comparison, and I use it for more than anything, I use it for the price history. I use this to see if they've listed it with an agent. Okay, so if she had a listing agent listing her house, it would be showing right here. But the only references I see recently are from auction.com. So she doesn't have an agent. That's good. That means if I went to her, I could make an offer. Because she's got no agent, I can make an offer subject to her existing loans, and I don't have to pay commission to a third party. I would write the offer myself if I felt like paying that amount. Now, I just left that Zillow, but I just want to check what they say on their Zestimate details. Wow, they say 126. So we're at 108, Zillow's at 126, and she owes about 99,000. Now, if this goes to the trustee sale, we know that they've got this opening bid for $47,500, and we know that that sale is on July 9th. So now I have choices, don't I? I have choices. If I think this place is really worth about 120 and I'm satisfied paying 99, I could go to her today and make a straight across offer to take the property over and just simply take advantage of that little bit of equity she does have. Or I could make a short sale offer and hope that the lenders are willing to accept that deal. Okay, I could make a short sale offer because they've already said they're going to open the bid at $47,500. You know, I could come in here and make an offer of 80 and I might get an okay. At 80, if this place is worth 120, I'm doing all right. Okay, now let's just say that we're going to potentially go make an offer to her, but we're going to keep the option of buying at the auction open too. And we can do that. We can do that. So I could go to her, write up an offer, and let's say I want to try to make the offer close at 80. Then I'll go to her with my offer of 80. I can do that. Or I can write up an offer for 99,000 or 100,000 even. And let's look at what we saw on Zillow again real quick. This house looks like it might need work. Okay, that's one of the first things we decide after we've established that we're interested in the property is, if I'm going to set a price on this property, I better have an idea of its condition. So this looks like the property. So it looks like we've got a corner lot. She does have a larger lot, but it's undeveloped. Okay, so we have some potential here. I think I could turn this into something nicer if I was going to put some effort into cleaning it up and giving it some nice curb appeal. The house next door looks well kept. So if I clean this up, yeah, I might be able to turn this into a moneymaker. I might just turn it into a rental. And again, this is one of the things that we emphasize. What's your game plan? Do I want to buy this and flip it? Or do I want to start building up a rental portfolio? I can tell you in this market, this is a great time to pick up properties below cost and turn them into rentals. And if you're going to build a cash flow environment, that's what you want to look at, is how can I get in here as cheaply as possible? So again, if I were to buy this property from Cynthia, I essentially am going to go in with about $10,000 and make an offer. You know, now I could get a cheaper deal at the auction, but I got to go in with at least $50,000 in cash. So the question is, do I have the cash and want to save more, or do I have limited cash and I want to get the deal at a reasonable price? Okay, so you notice how you have choices here. And what I have to decide for myself as an investor is, What's my maximum price? And then put my offer on paper. And then if that doesn't work out, be prepared to walk this thing through and maybe bid at the auction. There are other options too. And I gotta say, there are other options too. Who wrote this loan last year for $13,000? Now, this could be a hard money lender, or this could be a keep your home California type loan. I don't know. If this is a state funded or national program, then I probably can't buy that little note. But if it's a hard money lender, somebody that was lending them money just as a stopgap measure, then I might be able to buy that $13,000 note for a very small amount. Now, if I could buy this junior note, $13,000, let's call it 14 now because we're sure they're behind on payment. Well, if I could buy that note for $5,000, then I could spend another $10,000 and I could bring the first loan current. That is a junior lender buyout. This is one of the methods that Kurt teaches, where I could become the owner of this second, and as the owner of this second, I have a right to bring the first loan current. Now, I must admit, we're in a very tight squeeze, a very tight squeeze. If I were to buy this note, I would have to do it very quickly, because whenever a property is set to go to auction, there's always an auction date. I'm going to scroll down here. And again, we have an auction date of 7/9. Now, state law is that within 5 days of that date, so July 4th essentially, at that point, the lender, Nationstar, can demand payment in full. In other words, if they say, I don't want to let you reinstate the loan, you can't pay me $10,000, you have to pay me the $80,000, then I'd have to do that. I wouldn't have a choice. So I do need to make sure, if I intended to buy this note as a junior lender buyout, that I have acquired this well before 5 days prior to the auction. Well, I got to tell you, that puts us in a tight squeeze, doesn't it? That means I would have to get everything done between Monday and Thursday of next week. That's tough. That's tough. So I would not suggest the junior lender buyout as the primary method for this deal. If you're experienced at it and you know that you can make a phone call and land this right away, maybe. But that's a very tight squeeze, and I do usually recommend that you give yourself more time. However, I can tell you, Kurt has done this, specifically doing exactly what I've just described, because his emphasis is this. This second lender is desperate today because the first is going to go to auction in about 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. The first is taking this property to auction, and they're going to wipe out my second. So what Kurt would say is, call the holder of this second because they'll be desperate. They'll be desperate. Maybe you could buy this note for $1,000. Now, consider that. Consider that. I'm going to make you an offer. I'm going to offer you $1,000 because you're going to get wiped out at the auction. Okay? Well, if they sell me this note for $1,000, again, then I'm in a position to bring the first loan current with another 10. I'm into it for $11,000, and then I can start a foreclosure on this second. Now, primarily the reason you do that is because you've figured out a way to take ownership of the property without having to pay that first off completely, but more importantly, because now I'm only having to reckon with $1,000 on top of what's owed the first. I've just eliminated this other $13,000 worth of debt if I buy that second and for $1,000 and start my own foreclosure on it. Now, if I were to start a foreclosure on this $13,000 note that cost me $1,000, then when I go to auction, it would be about 4 or 5 months from now, and I would have a $77,000 first ahead of my second, and I would be asking for approximately 25 grand at the auction because I would be owed 13 plus another 10 plus maybe another 4 or 5,000 as the time passes by. So if that were to happen, nobody would bid on my second at auction, right? Nobody would bid. Now, what happens when nobody bids on a second at auction? Going, gone, sold to the lender, and in this case, the lender would be me. So I would get the property for my purchase price of about 85 plus another 1,000. So that would be my way of buying this place for about 86 if I wanted to go through the process of buying the note and I was willing to wait 5 or 6 months. But notice I only had to come up with a much smaller number. I only had to come up with 1,000 and another 10,000, but I got the property. Okay, and now I would be in a position at the close of my auction to turn around and sell this property to someone else, in which case they could take it over subject to this existing first, or I could simply turn this into a rental property if I wanted to rent it out and continue to make the monthly payments on the first loan, because remember, the second's gone because that would have been my loan. So you'll notice with this one property, I've got a variety of different ways that I can actually acquire it, but each one has its own unique characteristics. I can buy it from Cynthia today as a standard offer, or I could try to buy it as a short sale offer. Short sales obviously take a lot more time, and again, I don't see that as the primary method here. My other option, of course, is to try to buy the note. I just walked you through that. And then my other two steps are to be prepared to bid at auction. If I've got the cashier's checks and I want to go on this date. And then finally, if I don't buy it at auction, there's a chance someone else might. Now, whoever buys it at auction, I can buy it from them. What happens if this goes to auction? They open at 47.5, going, gone, and nobody bids. Well, then NationStar would be the new owner, and I would call them and offer to buy it from them. Okay, now a couple of points to go forward, because again, we've discovered a few things. Now, if this property is of interest to me and I'm interested in tracking it to the auction, I can do that just as an experiment. I can go to this trustee sale on Sycamore Drive in Norwalk. Again, this is a hotel, and there will be a lot of properties selling on that day. And I'm going to show you a couple of things about that in just a moment. First of all, though, notice that if I wanted to keep a track of this and I'm busy, I've got a lot of things going on, I can set it up to where the system will notify me of any changes in the schedule. So you'll notice if I go ahead and select email me when status changes, I can then put in my email address. And then I hit submit. Now, if this auction gets postponed, I will get an email. If this auction gets canceled, I will get an email. At the close of this auction, if it sells, I will get an email. So now I have set it up to get an update on this property. Also, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and type in notes if I drive by the property and I talk to Cynthia and she's interested in my offer. If she shows me around, I could take some pictures and upload them here. Okay, so now in addition, when I decide to save the property, I can pick a specific folder to save it in. I've got a variety of different folders because I've been doing a lot of research. Hold on just a moment. Okay, Bunny had a question here. Let's see what, Bunny had a couple questions. How will you pay for the second loan? Okay, if you're bidding at auction, you bid with cashier's checks. If you buy the loan from the lender, you buy with cashier's checks. We're always paying, when we buy a loan, we pay with cash. When we bid at the auction, we pay with cash. Cashier's checks are the preferred method of payment. We don't buy with business checks or with personal checks. It's cashier's checks, because remember, we're dealing in an environment where people don't necessarily pay their bills, and so the parties involved want to get paid with cashier's checks so they know they get paid. Bunny had another question. The 10K offer must be accepted by the bank. That's correct. So if I'm offering 10K offer, Oh, okay. If I'm offering to buy from Cynthia, if I'm offering her $100,000 to buy her house, then yes, then Cynthia needs to accept that offer. If I'm offering to buy a note from a lender, then that lender needs to accept my offer. Bunny, I'm not sure what you meant by the $10,000 offer must be accepted by the bank. I was saying if we offered $1,000 for this $13,000 note, that would be a cashier's check, and the lender would have to agree. And whenever I offer to buy a note, my offers are always subject to certain contingencies. Now, I'd want to know what's owed on the senior loan, on this first loan, if I'm going to buy the second, as a cash buy of the note. I would want to know what's owed the first. Now, we already know that because we know what the first is owed. We know where they're owed the $85,000 because they're the parties that has set the auction. So I already know what the senior debt is on this particular situation. I would want to see what this note looks like. And so that's also a contingency if I'm offering to buy the note from the lender, is I'm offering to buy a contract, because that's what a note is. It's a contract for the party to pay me. So if I'm buying a contract, I want to know what that contract says. So whenever I make an offer to buy a note, my offer is always contingent on viewing the note itself, and I would want to view the deed of trust as well together, side by side, because your note and your deed of trust are two companion documents. It's like a pair of shoes, and they must be together because the note defines the loan and the terms of repayment. The deed of trust provides the connection to the real estate that gives me the power to force payment if I'm not getting paid. So the two together form the real estate loan that we're purchasing. We're actually buying both the note and the deed of trust as a combined entity. Now, because they're together, I can use the deed of trust to compel payment of my note by forcing a foreclosure. Let's see. Okay, now Bunny's saying, are we going to take over the monthly payments as they are? Yes, if I take over a property subject to an existing first, and this is true whether I'm taking it over in an offer or whether I'm buying at the auction. If I was to bid on a second, again, if this $13,000 was for closing and I went to the auction and paid them off, I would own the house subject to this first loan, which we know is owed to 85 grand at this point. So you can bid on a second at auction, and it can make a lot of sense, but the numbers have to pan out. If this was a $200,000 house and the second was foreclosing, this would be a deal because I could get I could pay $13,000 at auction and take over $80,000, and I would own a $200,000 house. That's a steal. Okay, we just have slightly different numbers here. So we have to tell ourselves whether or not we think this is realistic. So when we're looking at the numbers, we're asking ourselves, do they make sense? Okay, if they make sense, they make sense. So now in this particular case, you weigh the numbers. Now, I was telling you I was going to show you a few other things, so we're going to go ahead and show you some other aspects of the site. Now, remember I was telling you earlier that we could have made an offer to Cynthia a long time ago. This notice of sale hit our website back in April, but Cynthia's history is going to go further back. This is why we have our single property search section. Now I'm going to copy her parcel number right off the profile here. So I've just copied her parcel number. Now, okay, Bunny just asked me, if I have bad credit, why would the bank let me take over a loan? Okay, first of all, if you make an offer subject to an existing loan, your credit doesn't matter, okay? If I take over a property at auction by bidding on the second at auction, who's checking my credit? No one. No one. Okay, so the bottom line is this: if the bank has no choice, you take over the loan. Now, once I take over the property with the loan on it, a bank could call the loan from a change of ownership. They usually do not. They usually do not. As a matter of fact, this is how people buy foreclosures. This is how people have been buying foreclosures for decades, is you make an offer subject to the existing loan and you take it over. As long as you're making payments these days, the bank is going to be perfectly happy with you paying on that loan. If you fail to pay, they'll just start another foreclosure. That's fine for them. So remember, the flexibility in this business is because we're stepping into a foreclosure circumstance. We're doing what banks do. Remember, banks make the rules for themselves very easy, okay, because they are doing business and they want to make their business functional. The rules that apply to the lender in terms of taking a property over at auction apply to us. That's why we can buy the property at the trustee sale, because if we don't come to the auction, who buys the house? The bank does. The only difference is if we step in and buy the property, we're doing exactly what a bank would do. And therefore, we're able to use the leverage that the bank has in terms of the method of the foreclosure so that we can acquire a property too. Okay, so now it seems simple, doesn't it? Because it is. And what we want to do is we want to make offers subject to existing loans, because that makes our cash go farther. Because if I don't have to come up with all $80,000, I certainly don't want to have to do it. Okay, so as long as we're making offers, we can get a lot more mileage out of our capital. If we're bidding at the auction, then we do have to have all cash, and we also have to make sure we've researched our loan information to make sure if we're bidding on a first, that we know in fact it is a first. Now again, notice that this first loan was written December 17th of 2009. This purchase date is December 17th of 2009. That's why I felt from the beginning that this first loan is a purchase loan. So I'm not worried about there being anything senior to it. Okay, if I saw a purchase date here of 2000 or 1995, then I would know that I would require secondary research. So this is why I'm going to show you secondary research. Again, I'm copying the parcel number. Now, I'm using Google Chrome, where there are a variety of different browsers out there, but you'll notice they have a lot of common functions. You'll notice that up at the top, I've got a tab for each of my open pages. I've got a tab for my property profile. I've got a tab for that list of addresses, and I've got my County Records Research main page tab. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that parcel number that I pulled off the property, and I'm going to put it in my single property search window in the appropriate box that says parcel number. Now remember, what are we doing? We're researching a property that we've already found. That's what our single property search is all about. I'm going to hit my search button. Now notice, I now have a report that's a fingerprint of this particular property going all the way back to 2009. This is the advantage of working with County Records Research. Hold on a moment. Okay, first of all, okay, Bunny had another question. You go to the house, Bunny. You go to the house. Don't worry about the phone number. Most of these people let their landlines get disconnected because they don't pay the bill. What you want to do is you want to go to the house with an offer and try and get Cynthia to take it. It's a direct offer, person to person. If you start dialing phone numbers, just remember that most of these people, again, are on the do not call list, or they've had their main phone disconnected and they've moved to a prepaid cell. Remember, these are people that don't pay their bills. So they don't want collection calls, so they usually have their landline disconnected. So just for clarification, we've been in this business for over 30 years. The most direct approach is the best approach. Now, some people will send out mailers to the house. If you want to send out mailers to the house, go ahead. But we recommend that you use a mailing house that's going to do it for you inexpensively. And make sure you have a message that makes sense for the homeowner. Try not to send generic looking envelopes to the house that look like they come from a business or a law firm. They might not get opened. What we found works effectively is a postcard. If you want to get a message out to them that they don't have to open an envelope. But more importantly, you should go to the house and have an offer already written. Again, make a decision. What are you willing to offer on the property? Go to Cynthia's house, and if she doesn't answer the door, put it in her mailbox. Because what we want to do is we want to get her to know that we have an offer and we're serious about it. And if she's serious about finding a way out of her situation, make sure she has your phone number so she can give you a call. Then you could walk her through what your offer is. If she's satisfied with it, go over there, meet with her, sit down, and have her sign it. Once she's agreed to sell you the property, then it's just a question of opening up the escrow. Okay, and we can take over a property subject to someone else's existing loans as long as we're satisfied, again, with the dollar amount. Because if we buy the property and everything is set and we're happy with the numbers, then even if we have to refinance later, we've got a good price on the property and we're in a position to refinance because our loan to value is in a good ratio. Okay, now as you're buying properties, what you want to do is you want to make these offers according to what your goals are. If I'm buying a house for myself, that's one thing. If I'm buying to flip, that's another. And I have to have a business plan, and my price on each property has to match my plan. Now, as I said, you notice I picked up these different records on her property, and I just wanted to get a quick look just to see if there's any history here for me to keep in mind. Now, again, I'm bringing to your attention, her foreclosure started back at an earlier date. Now, oh, this is interesting. So this is the property. This is who owned it before her, Tammy Egan. So Tammy was the owner of the house, and this went into foreclosure. Tammy owned it since 1985. So it looks like she went into foreclosure. It looks like she lost the property in 2009. So Tammy was the previous owner. She lost it to foreclosure, and her lender took it from her. So what we have now, Cynthia bought this property as an REO. So notice how now I know a little bit more of the story simply by going and doing my single property search. So we know this house is in its second foreclosure, that Cynthia bought it from someone who got into trouble themselves, and now we're watching Cynthia go through the same thing. So Cynthia knows exactly what's going on. So we know that if we go to approach her, that she's familiar with the concept because she bought her house as an REO. Okay. Now, again, I could go to Cynthia, make her an offer, or I can wait for the auction and see what else happens. And Bunny did ask, how do I know that Cynthia lives at the house? Well, we don't. As a matter of fact, this looks like this is a rental because the street address is 167th Street East in Palmdale. But look at the address under Cynthia's name. This is an address in Little Rock. Okay, so if I went to the property, chances are I'm going to talk to a renter. But it doesn't hurt to go find out, because you might find out that Cynthia's had to move back into the place. Now, if you ever see a mailing address up here on the top that's different than the property, you can always go ahead and search this property using our single property search to find out if it's ever been in foreclosure. Because for all we know, Cynthia might have bad luck and she might be losing two properties at the same time. Anytime we're doing research, it always pays to explore. Okay. Now, what I had mentioned earlier before we went and did the single property search was that this auction's happening at this July 9th date at this location in Norwalk. So let's say that I wanted to buy the property itself and that I was interested in finding out any other potential deals because I want to go to this auction on the 9th and I want to go participate. Well, if I only go with one property in mind, the odds of me buying it are pretty slim because, you know, there's going to be a bunch of properties, plus there's going to be a bunch of people. So why don't we see what else is going to auction at that same time? So we know it's July 9th, and we know it's the Sycamore address. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close out this profile, and you'll notice I've still got these tabs up here. I'm going to close these out too. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify upcoming trustee sales, because we know this is a set for July 9, right? My auction date range is automatically 2 weeks. Now, anytime we make a choice in the choose one box, we're going to get a 2-week range. We can keep it at 2 weeks, or we can expand it to a month, or we can cut it down to a single day. This is, again, the flexibility we give you to look and find what you're looking for. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my auction dates for the 9th. Notice now I have July 9th and July 9th. Now I'm going to go down here, and I can specify that Sycamore address, and there it is. All right, so now I've got a July 9th auction date, Sycamore Drive. Now, because we want to see what else is going on, this is an LA County auction, just one day of the week. I might be interested in something outside Palmdale. So I'm going to select the other LA counties. Why not? Because if I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there. So now I'm going to search all LA County properties, but just on that one date. And because I'm only interested in what's going to be at the auction, here's a little checkbox right next to my search button that says only active sales. Now, what this button does, this only active sales checkbox will remove any canceled auctions from the list. So I'm going to go ahead and hit search. Now, notice what I just got from this search. I now have, for July 9th, I have, wow, a nice big list. This is a big auction. 0 to 20 of 373 records set to go on this one date in this one location. This is a heck of a day. Okay, this would be, if you wanted to be a fly on the wall at an auction and get a good observation of how auction.com runs a presentation, you could do this. Now, notice what I said before, it was 0 to 20 of like 14, so I didn't have to do anything because I had all properties visible. Now, at this point, I only have 20 out of 373. So that's quite a bit. And how do we pare this down to something functional? Well, first of all, below the map, I'm going to hit where it says show 20, 40, 60. I'm going to click the 60. Now, notice what it just did. It just reformatted my map. And now I have them across all of LA County. And again, remember, I just added this other part of LA County since I'm going to an auction anyway, and I want to be aware of any other opportunities that might be at that same location. Now, you'll notice that some of these have opening bids, many do not. Again, just as a course of action, the lenders don't always set an opening bid before the auction. Now, at the auction.com sales, they will set some. If I scroll down, you'll notice here's a few. Okay. You'll also notice that most of these numbers at the auction.com sale will be in round numbers. They're very general numbers, 110,000, 140,000, 180,000. These are what we call an opening or specified bid that has a reserve bid behind it. And what I mean by that is this is a philosophy that some lenders use where they set an opening bid that's really cheap, followed up by what is called a reserve bid or the actual required amount. So if the lender says, I'm willing to take $110,000 on a $240,000 house, take it with a grain of salt. What they really mean is we're going to start the bidding at 110. Now, we don't know what their reserve could be. It could be 150. It could be 170. We're not sure. But if I felt that buying the property for 150 would be appropriate, then I would get my cashier's checks together. I'd be prepared to bid, but be aware that this is an announced opening bid price. Therefore, everybody that's up against me at that same auction, all my potential competition, have that same piece of information, and they're going to be prepared to act. So just be aware that in this circumstance, I'm most likely not going to be the sole bidder on this one property. However, there are other properties similar to this where the opening bid is not yet announced. Consider those to be an opportunity, because if the opening bid is not yet announced, then that means other parties aren't necessarily prepared to buy that particular house. So let's take a look at a potential opportunity down here. Here's a property. Now, this is a condo because it has a unit number in Burbank. Notice that our market value is $227,000. This looks like a studio. The market value is $227,000, but the lender appears to be only owed $124,000. But there is no opening bid announced. So a couple of points. The lender hasn't announced their opening bid. They're probably going to crunch the numbers, and they're probably going to come up with a specific amount that will be in this range, depending upon how many payments have been missed since they came up with the original figure of $124,000. But we know it's going to be less than the $227,000. It's going to be in between. So I could set a bid for myself and be prepared to go to the sale. And if I'm the only party that's prepared, when they announce an opening bid of, say, $126,000, then I can say, and a penny. Now, if I'm the sole bidder at the auction, all I need to do is say, and a penny. The opening bid at every auction, as we discussed in the other discussion, every opening bid is set by the lender themselves. So when the lender sets this opening bid, they're probably going to set it for what they're owed, because if they're owed $126 and it's worth $226, somebody should step up and buy it. It just makes sense. So the lender would ask for what they're owed, and if I'm prepared for it, then I'm ready to be that buyer, and I'm ready to get this property for $100,000 below market. Now, if nobody else is as prepared as I am, then I'm there and I can grab it. So I might be prepared to bid on that one. Now, look at the one right below it in the city of Carson on Panama Avenue. Now, this is a completely different property. This is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. This is a home, okay? This has a market value of about $400,000, but the bank is owed $568,000 on a foreclosing first, and $115,000 on a second that's going to get wiped out at the auction. Now, you might look at this and say, well, this lender's owed $560,000 on a $400,000 house. That's not going to happen. Nobody's going to get a deal on that one. Well, you probably couldn't be more mistaken if you were to have that thought, because at this auction, we've got a $400,000 house that's owed almost $6. Actually, if you add the second loan in there, they're owed about $7. The bottom line is this. This lender will probably open the auction for about $300,000, maybe even less. If I am suspecting that that's going to be the case, then I can think ahead of the game and I can be prepared. I could be prepared to bid $150 on this property in Burbank, but I could take with me $320,000 and be prepared to bid on this property and hope that they open the bid somewhere below $3. Now, why did I say $320? Well, because I have a price in mind, but you know, this is not a perfect world. We have to be prepared for whatever happens. If I think I'm going to spend $300,000 on a property at the auction, then I want to give myself the flexibility. Remember, that word keeps coming back into the conversation. I want to give myself the flexibility where if there's a counter bid that takes it to 301, I can take it to 302 and here going, gone, and I still get the property, because I don't want to lose an opportunity over a couple of $1,000s. A couple of $1,000s will not make or break you, but it certainly can make the difference between whether or not I walk away from the auction with a piece of paper in my hand that says I own this property. So what we want to emphasize to you is think outside the box, remain flexible. For every property that you're interested in purchasing, set a purchase price for yourself based on your business plan or based on your goal as an individual, whether I'm buying a home for myself or whether I'm buying a fourplex to turn into an income property, or whether I'm buying one of these homes that I want to turn into a quick flip. What I want to do is I want to set a purchase price for myself and ask myself, how can I get there? And if I can get there from the very beginning by making an offer to the homeowner, I'm going to do that. If I can get there by buying one of the notes, then I'm going to try and do that. If I can get there by bidding at the trustee sale auction, I'll do that. And if in the final layout of events, if I wind up making an offer to the person who beat me to the punch and bought it at the auction, and I can do the deal that way, you'd be surprised at how many people do just that. They actually go to the auction, they see somebody get the price at the property at the price they would have loved to get, but it's such an exceptionally low price that they're willing to pay even more than that. Well, they simply go to the person who bought it and make an offer to them. You've all thought about purchasing REOs that way. Think about making an offer to another third-party bidder who bought it that way, because just like an REO, I can make an offer, but if I actually see this person physically buy the house at the auction, I can walk right up to him, hand him my business card, congratulate him on making an exceptional buy, and let them know that I'm funded and I'd like to write up an offer, and maybe I can just sit down with them, have lunch, or just take them with me over to the local Kinko's or anywhere else and conduct a transaction if they're willing to do the transaction, or set up a meeting to meet at a local escrow office and get the deal done there. Anyway, we're at the conclusion of this presentation. Does anyone have any questions that we didn't cover in the presentation so far? Anyone? Bunny? Bruce? All right, well, what we'll do, right now it's a little after 3:30. We're going to go ahead and end today's presentation. This will be recorded in our archive, so we will have it available for later use. But as you have questions, please ask them. If you email us addresses, we can look at the information and respond to your questions. You're going to find that's one of the ways that we like to help you, is we can review a property and give you tips. As you're looking to purchase these properties, leave no stone unturned, make as many offers as you can. Even if you're considering buying it at auction, making an offer is probably the best way to get to the property, talk to the person, and see what the condition of the home is, because we need to set a price. And seeing the property is how we get rid of any unanswered questions and set that price. And I have one more question here from Bunny. Is there any formality needed to make an offer? Okay. If we're making an offer to buy a note, it's a fairly informal action. What I'm going to do in response to Bunny's question, I'm going to hit my main tab up here on top, and I'm going to scroll up. Now, you'll notice we have Q&A with Kurt. We also have in our training and support, we have video training. But we also have our forms page. So now I've opened up my forms page. Now, when we're making offers on the property, our primary offer form is the real estate purchase contract and receipt for deposit, which is similar to your current CAR form, although this is an older document. It's perfectly functional. It's perfectly usable to make offers to either the homeowner or the bank. This is to buy a house or an apartment building. It's to buy the real estate. So we use the real estate purchase contract and receipt for deposit to make an offer to buy the property. That's either from the homeowner before the auction or from the bank after the auction if it becomes an REO. Now, if we're making offers to homeowners like Cynthia, then we also want to have copies of the equity purchase agreement and keep notices of cancellation and an addendum to the equity purchase agreement. We want to have these documents in a folder in our car. We want to keep blank copies with us. So print out the equity purchase agreement, the addendum, and the notices of cancellation. You'll need these for offers to homeowners where there's equity in the house and they live in the house. Now remember, in Cynthia's case, it didn't appear she lived in the house because her address was different from the property. With Cynthia, I would write up the real estate purchase contract and receipt for deposit, and I wouldn't even bother with the equity purchase agreement unless when I went to talk to her, I found out she actually lived in the house and it's the only property she owns. If she lives in the house and it's the only property she owns and there's equity in the house, which means there's equity, and I'm going to take advantage of that, then the equity purchase agreement is necessary. For all offers, regardless, the real estate purchase contract and receipt for deposit is your starting point. This is what we use to write up our offer for the house. Now, if we're talking about buying notes, then we recommend that you look at our offer to purchase a non-performing note right here. Now, notice this is a very simple document. This is a basis for your understanding of how you offer to buy a note. For depth into this, I would recommend watch Kurt's presentations and listen to his podcast on the junior lender buyout. Because what this form is, this is essentially putting into words what Kurt describes in his junior lender buyout presentations, because essentially most of your conversation is going to be verbal. When you go to offer to buy a note, you literally are just using this as a basis. You can use this to put a fax over to someone offering to buy the note, examining these contingencies. But the bottom line is you're just simply offering to purchase the note and that you need verification of its value and what is owed any senior debt. And of course, you want to know what the property's condition is. So again, once we've assembled all the facts, then we can finalize our deal to buy the note. But it's a very informal transaction. You literally speak to the person you're going to buy the note from, and you make arrangements to meet them at a location with a notary, and you have them sign over to you the note, and what you're purchasing is the note itself, and then you become the new assignee of the deed of trust. So when you meet them at a location, they would sign the note over, and then they would complete a document in front of a notary, which assigns the deed. Remember what I said earlier, the note and the deed match each other. It's a match set. So whenever we go to meet somebody, we're gonna make sure we get everything straightened out. Now, if you're looking at doing these types of transactions, you can contact us over the telephone, you can send us emails, you can set up a meeting and come into the office, or as I recommend, continue attending Kurt's live presentations and have some questions for him and have actually your documents in front of you. Most of your conversations that you're going to have to try to land deals are essentially trying to get the homeowner to sign their purchase contract and receipt for deposit. When you get into the situation of buying non-performing notes, you're going to find a lot of that is going to be informal conversations where you're going to make arrangements to meet the party at a location where you can exchange a cashier's check for the assignment and the note. Now, this is going to conclude our presentation for today. You've gotten a lot of information, but this is just the beginning. We're here to support you with any of your questions. We're here Monday through Friday from 9 until 6. As you're using the website, we recommend that you contact us as you have questions. If you're working at night, you can send us emails in the evening, and we will respond to them the next business day. Again, thank you so much for attending this presentation. We welcome all of your questions. We welcome you to attend the events. Get out there and start practicing writing offers. And then as you have questions, let us know. Thank you again. This has been Bob and County Records Research.